All right. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first Learn session for Summit this year. I hope you have got your Swiss Army knives ready, sharpened, and prepped for this great session hosted by Olu. So my name is Bryden Neville. If I haven't met you before, nice to meet you. I'll be hosting today's session. If you have any questions or experience any difficulties, please feel free to pop me a message in the chat, and we'll look to help you to make this a really good experience for you. So today we are very privileged to have Asuni give us a talk about gamification, and I'm really excited to hear about this. But before we jump into this, just a couple of house rules for this particular talk. So first of all, if we could ask you to please keep yourselves on mute for the duration of your talk. When you joined, you have been put on mute, so you should all be on mute already. For those of you new to Zoom, and I hope that's not many of you, but please use the reaction buttons at the bottom of the panel. It'll be great for the speaker just to hear how you're feeling about things. So let's see those thumbs up, smiley faces and hearts go. And also you're welcome to come off mute at the end of the talk and give a round of applause or just show your appreciation for the speaker at the end. I always ask that you can post questions on the chat during the talk. He'll actually pick those questions up from the chat and will answer them as part of the session. So please engage and post those questions, as many as you like, during the talk. And then at the end, we'll be having a bit of an open mic Q&A session. So afterwards, if you do have questions, please feel free to put yourself off of mute and ask away. All right, so on to the talk. So today we've got Olu Asuni. He is a senior business analyst at the MTN Group. He oversees the business analysis team within the mobile financial services business of MTN South Africa's operations. He fancies himself as a polymath with research interests spanning ethics of gamification, robotics, AI, and machine learning, new business models for traditional businesses, and human-centered design and participatory governance. In his spare time, he assists startups and nonprofits in their technology adoption journeys. And with over 15 years of experience guiding nonprofits, businesses and public institutions' adoption of technology in various capacities, Olu is always keen to explore new tools, technologies, and techniques with a view of finding human-centered, commercial, and impactful use cases for these. So please, in a virtual way, give a warm welcome to Olu as he discusses gamification. Over to you, Olu.
Hi, thanks, Bryden. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. I couldn't have done a better job myself. Thank you very much. There were parts of that introduction that I was wondering who you were introducing, but but it's fine. Thank you very much. And it feels good to be here today. Like I said in the BA lounge earlier, one gets a little nervous, especially at the beginning of talks like this, and making matters slightly a little unbearable or a little unpalatable is I can't read the room. If we were in a physical session, if we're in a physical room, I would be able to read your faces and be able to adjust my pace as may be required. So I'm going to ask that to make it slightly more palatable for me and to keep me going so that I can kill the butterflies quickly. Please join in the conversation in the chat tool, and feel free to ask questions. If you have alternative views as well, please feel free to put them in there. I plan to finish the presentation in about 20-25 minutes, and then answer those questions or answer them as I go along. And then close out with, like Bryden rightly said, close out with an open mic session where we powwow, if you will, on the subject. So this is the agenda. We will pretty much follow this. There are chances that if I find that we are running behind, I will skip a few slides and all that. Each of the bullet points here, I've got one or two, an average of 2 slides attached to them. So that leaves us about 14, 15 slides. So one key question that comes to mind readily is that what is gamification? And gamification is like economics in that there is and it's like economics and the BA profession. there are potentially as many definitions as there are practitioners or people with a stake in the game. But I'll be going, for the purpose of our conversation this morning, I'll be going with this definition here, which is that gamification is the application of game design principles and game mechanics in designing experiences for stickiness in non-game or non-gaming environments. So it's borrowing the techniques, the mechanics that exist in game design in non-gaming environments. Examples of places where gamification have been applied to great success is in learning, where the journey from the beginning to the end is not just about the core learning requirements or the core learning goals that students need to meet, but there are incentives planted at every point, at every here and there, to encourage or nudge the students to complete their training. Another question that readily comes to mind is that why gamification? But before I get there, I'm going to ask you a question, and I would like you to please type your answers into the chat box. Have you played a game lately? Have you played a game lately? Any game? It's okay if you haven't. I'm actually hoping that I will get a few no's. Okay, Larissa says no. Yeah, I trapped her. I tricked her and she fell into my. Margaret also says no. Cool. Lizelle, Overcooked. Is that the name of a game you are playing, Lizelle? You should tell me about it afterwards. I just play soccer. Okay, cool. Gavin. Okay, all right. So I'll tell you guys something now. I'm gonna, for everybody who's on this call right here, right now, you've all played the game. You've played the game as recently as this morning, and I'll prove it to you. Does this make any sense to anybody? What do you think? What do you think you're doing there when you're trying to close the rings? If you have any of this, and you have ever looked at the screen and you have wondered to yourself, oh, I've been sitting all day, I've not done I've not put in my daily dose of walking. Then you're engaged in a game. Have you seen this? Yes, Sonnet. Yes, thanks, Sonnet. Yeah, I agree. Have you seen this? Have you seen this? Has any of you seen this? Have you seen this? When you see this, what happens to you? What do you do when you see this? What do you do when you see this? Usually when you see this, I'll tell you, I'm gonna hazard a guess. When you see this, you stop whatever you're doing to go check. Just in case it's somebody liking your comment, your powerful comment on your post this morning, or just in case somebody has commented on the picture of your recent holiday. You don't want to miss out. You want to be kept up to date on what's going on around and all that. That's also that's how Facebook games us. Imagine if there were no notifications. We would all go and check our Facebook messages when we have time, maybe over the weekend. Never in the course of work, never over coffee, never whilst having a conversation with our better apps or with our colleagues at work and all that. But because Facebook needs our attention, they have engineered a tool or a means or a technique to keep getting our attention. Now, there will be the argument of whether all of this is fair or not. And I know if you haven't seen the rings, if you haven't seen Facebook's notification, you have seen this one at least once on LinkedIn. This is the definition of a professional. You want to keep your LinkedIn profile up to date. And I guess for as long as this is shown to you by LinkedIn and it says you're a beginner, you know that you are really an expert. You want to drive to completion. You ask yourself, or you check what they're asking here. What does LinkedIn want me to add? And then we go and add it and all that. And you see, to be honest with you, this is how LinkedIn has been able to achieve the size of completed profile on LinkedIn that they have today. If LinkedIn introduces a new feature that they need us all to participate in, if they want us all to, say, for example, write an article a week or 2 articles a week, all they need to do is to put a dashboard like this before us that shows us that we haven't written any articles this week. Then they can take it a step further and tell us that our colleagues in the IIBA, that 40% of our colleagues in the IIBA have done this, you know, or at the beginning when they launch it, they will say, be the first to do this. Nobody, I mean, except it's a terrible thing. None of us in this room don't want to be the first to do something. It gives us bragging rights. It gives us some kind of status. And I'll show us at the end of the day how all of this ties together. Lizelle, you look excited. Is there something you want to say? Or are you looking excited to keep me motivated?
No,
in which case
I
it's
totally disagree with you.
Say again?
I'm just in full agreement with your topic. It's very in line with mine as well. The attention economy, like Nir Ayal's book on Hooked.
Okay, cool stuff. Thank you. So look, gamification, I mean, as you might have guessed, did not just emerge on its own. It's got a long and cherished history. Games inspired electronic games. So traditional games, board games, chess games, and the likes inspired electronic games. You know, some of you would find if you boil down the ocean of board games and electronic games, you'll find out that at the very core they have similar fundamentals. And gamification holds its birth primarily to electronic games. You would find that for people who play any of those games, casual games or hardcore games, you'd find that, and you've also experienced gamification in the wild, you find that there are similar principles that underpins both sets of initiatives. Now, so why gamification? See, gamification, if well designed and implemented, would nudge people into taking rational decisions. There's a slide here that speaks to the idea that, or the fact that the Homo economicus does not exist. So Homo economicus is the idea by economics or by school of economic thought that human beings, given all of the facts, all of the data, will take the right decisions. You know, and I can tell you for a fact that there is at least one thing that each and every one of us in this room know is not absolutely good for us, but that we still do. So for me, it is coffee. When I don't stop until I literally start bouncing off the walls, and I have to find something to calm myself down, which is then meditation and all such. But I know it. You know, thanks, Bryden. I know you are guilty too. I've seen the mug make a number of trips from your desk to your mouth. So it's what it is, you know. And there are several others. I also argue that if you all look at the cars we drive, all the cars in our garage that we drive today, maybe there are some of us who did a full study, compared the BMW X3 to the Lexus UX 350 and all that before we made the purchase and all that, you know. But the vast majority of us bought the cars of our dreams as soon as we could. As soon as we had the financial capabilities to do so, without any thought as to whether that car of our dream really still fits the dream or is of any economic benefit to us. None of us, well, besides the millennials, the much castigated demography, besides them, majority of us today are fixated on the things that we are used to doing, that we love to do, and we don't go back to check whether it makes any sense for us or not. So a new school of thought then emerged to say that there is a need for people to be nudged into doing the right things. So we all know, for example, let me bring the conversation further down to earth and to something that we are not going to be emotional about. We all know, for example, that when leaving the house, we should switch off all of the lights. For those of us who are on prepaid billing, who buy prepaid electricity, we don't forget to do it, because we know that we run a risk of coming back home and not finding electricity, because in our absence, the pool pump, the lights, the geyser are used it up. But for the vast majority of people who get bills after the fact, we forget to. For those who are on prepaid, if you forget and you are probably a quarter of the way to your destination, you turn around to go, you count the cost and turn around to go switch off the power and all that. So in a manner of speaking, the fact that we are prepaying for electricity and knowing that we get what we've paid for nudges us into taking the right actions. So gamification, when well designed and implemented, will nudge people into taking rational decisions. People don't take rational decisions on their own. And when gamification is not well designed, or is designed and implemented in a way that only satisfies the business needs, we begin to see dark patterns where people are tricked into taking actions that don't benefit them, but that only benefits the guys or the people who have the businesses who have created the games, the gamified experiences. So gamification also illustrates the nudge theory, a gift from behavioral economics and psychology, which emphasizes the need for incentives to get individuals and groups to take action. So gamification and the nudge theory in general can and does have a dark side. I've alluded to the dark side. The dark side is that we build addictive experiences that ends up controlling people, not for their own benefits, but solely for the benefits of the individual businesses that have crafted this experience. And a clear case is the state of China. China has got a social score number that every Chinese citizen from a certain age and above has. It is similar to the credit score we have here in South Africa and in the US, which monitors your credit health and gives you a score based on that, how well you pay your debts and all of those kind of things. And that also would, if you keep that clean and healthy, it gives you an opportunity to access credit in the future. So yeah, but in China, for example, what then happens is that it takes that idea a step further, and being well behaved is factored into your social score. So being well behaved includes things like not being a dissident, not campaigning against the policies of the government. And we all know that government is not always right, and there's a need for participation in governance. You show up at work when you're supposed to show up. You don't break traffic rules, and I believe that none of us South Africans would survive in that environment. We all have one speed ticket or the other in our inboxes waiting to be settled. Except yeah, my wife she does it. I don't know how she does it. Every time we get a speed ticket, I'm always hoping that it's hers, but more often than not, it's mine. So all of those things are then put together by the state of China to control the behavior of the people. So you find that, and the challenge for the individual then is you can't be your true self, because you are afraid that as soon as you begin to be your true self and it's in contravention with the laid down rules of governance or government, you get punished. Because now your social score is factored into whether or not you are able to get into schools of your choice, is factored into whether or not you get credit for your business, and that is the dark side of gamification. Another dark side of gamification is that we might be too involved in gamifying the experience that we do not factor in the needs of the players. We do not factor helping the players reach their needs or reach their potentials. And at the end of the day, we would benefit, but we will leave the players as a net loser. So how then do we beat that? We'll get to that in a second. So I'm going to quickly go through this slide. A short history of gamification. It's just to illustrate the fact that gamification did not just drop out of the sky. It benefited from all of this historical development. Board games, which were invented around 400 BC, hazard and dominoes, which were invented. Records show that they were invented between the 14th and 18th century. Table games Date of arrival are not known, but these are believed to have arrived sometime in the 19th century. So table games include table tennis, billiards, and pool games, and electronic games, which all of us are familiar with. This predates computers. The first patent for an electronic game was filed in 1947 for a cartridge tube amusement device. But these have since gone on to introduce us to arcade games, and today we have electronic games that we play on our computers. And the first time ever that the word gamification was used relative to non-gaming environment was in 2010. And gamification leverages some of the mechanics that we see that has been established in video games. For people who've had some experience with gamification before now, this really comes to mind. They know about points, they know about badges, and they know about leaderboards or level ups. Every game has got points. Majority of the players play to score the points. And the points are usually instant. Nobody would return if the points are delayed. Converting the points into benefits might be delayed, but scoring the points instantly is a good one. And a good example that we can all resonate with is potentially our fitness devices. We see the rings, and we see them move as they perform each activity that each ring is associated with. So, and at the end of the day, we get a badge, or at the end of the week, if we've closed the ring every day of the week up for 5 days, we get a badge that says we are, a ring closer. And then we have leaderboards that allows us to compare our performance with that of our peers, people with similar skills and exposure and opportunities and challenges. And we see how well we're doing. Sometimes you miss out on the points, you miss out on the badges, but you check your leaderboard and you realize that you're at the bottom of the leaderboard. And you know everybody else on that leaderboard, and you know that you can beat them. If push comes to shove, you can beat them. And next week you decide, no, I'm not going to let this happen. Next week, I'm going to beat all of these guys. And that's the reason why you then go back and score the points and all the badges so that you can rank high on the leaderboards. But the truth is that, again, this could be used for dark purposes by gamification designers. And even besides that, the other challenge that you see to it is that people will soon get tired of the points, and people will soon get tired of the badges, or you will run out of badges, or people, if I've been atop the leaderboard for so long, there's no more challenges for me to look up to. So I probably will stop playing the game. So there's a need for us to consider what motivates people, what keeps people coming. And that's why I've added here that gamification is beyond these mechanics, points, badges, and leaderboards. Every textbook, every presentation about gamification usually starts with this PBL. But those are fundamental mechanics, but they need to be wrapped within an overarching envelope for our gamification exercises or experiments or experiences to work. So I've addressed this earlier. Homo economicus is dead or probably never existed. People take decisions because they are motivated, not because they see all of the facts and they then take the most rational decision and all that. For example, I defer getting the flu shot until it's too late to get them, and I know that I'm not the only one in this room that does that. But imagine if there was some sort of motivation beyond just being responsible and doing the right thing. Imagine if there was something else that I look up to and all that. So sometimes my inclination is like, that's fine. If I don't get the flu shot, it's okay. The worst is I'm going to get the flu, and potentially I'll take 1 week off work. And but if there was a punishment, if that 1 week of work was absolutely, I can't accommodate it. I'm on a big project and I can't accommodate that 1 week away from work and all that. Sometimes that could be the reason why I not only take the flu shot, I probably, in a manner of speaking, get an extra shot administered as soon as I realize that the first one is not working and all that. So people take actions because they are motivated. And economists are divided on this subject. Some believe that motivation is overrated, but I disagree. I think that motivation is not overrated. The key thing is that we need to find a fine balance of motivation. So there are two groups of motivation. There is the extrinsic motivation factors, and there are the intrinsic ones. Now, extrinsic motivation factors, there's a slide that speaks to it further down. So extrinsic motivation factors potentially are those factors that are external to us. So in management, they are the stick and carrot kind of factors. You know that if you do this, you get a carrot. If you don't do it, you get a stick. And because you don't want to get a stick, you do it, not because you believe in it and all that. And you could do it. You could do half measures. If you can go, if the requirement is to go a mile, but you can fundamentally go 2 miles for the sake of yourself and the business, you probably won't do it because you don't have the time or the energy to do it, or because you don't have the right motivation to do it. But intrinsic motivation is internal. It's what keeps us going, irrespective of what external factors are saying. So if we leverage intrinsic and extrinsic motivations correctly, we would be able to get people to take the kind of decisions we want them to take. So one of the reasons some of the reasons that we gamify, I've listed here. Not everybody would agree with this, but this is my theory or my position from an ethical point of view. We need to gamify to help people make better decisions. So if your product or service is not one that would help people make better decisions about their lives or about their well-being, maybe not gamify it. Maybe not trick people into performing, or maybe not nudge people into do it. So an example would be if you run a business that, if you run a slot machine business, I think it is just okay not to gamify that, not to continue to sell people on false hopes. Another reason to gamify is to help people do the right things. We want to reduce electricity consumption in the country because the power grid is under stress. That's a good example of an experience that should be gamified. So that when I'm switching off, when I feel when I'm leaving the house and I reach for the switch, or I forget to reach for the switch, I have meaning, I have reason to go back. I have ownership to go back and switch off the switch. And I repeatedly do the right things. That's probably for emphasis, and because I want to emphasize that. But if you smell that the project you are working on blurs the line between what is ethical and what is not ethical, the ethical thing to do is to avoid gamifying that experience, is to avoid getting as many people into it as possible. And I know I sound like a pastor around ethics and all that. It's because I've seen the dangers that gamification has done to people, and they didn't settle for it. They didn't ask for it and all that. So as much as possible, we as BAs shouldn't do any more harm to the world. Rather, we should move the world. We should work to elevate the world. Moving on quickly. So this framework would work anywhere, anytime. What are the things we need to do to ensure a successful gamification project? This will work for any project in any case. We need to envision what we want to achieve. We need to start with a clear goal in mind. We need to then work out to craft the experience or a series of experiences to nudge to help us achieve the action, the target behavior we want to see in our customers or our players. And we need to continuously monitor and evaluate and apply new knowledge to improve the gamified experience. So again, when you see that players are beginning to, if your game is an infinite game and you see that players have started to slow down, it's important that you find something to further engage them. You will see that in most video games, especially the casual video games, there are always new things that weren't there this month. There are always new versions of the games, and there are always new levels or new things to look up to and all that. Otherwise, people then get saturated, or they become unchallenged and they stop playing the game. And all of this within the confines of empathy. Again, it goes back to what I said earlier, ethics and legal. Your games or your gamified experiences must not break any laws. So if you are giving people money in your games, for example, or you're giving them tokens that can be exchanged for real cash, you need to factor in things like, do they need to pay taxes on their rewards? If they did too, then you have to withhold the taxes. You don't just trust them enough to go and do it, you withhold the taxes, and you're clear about that. So your games or your gamified experiences should never break any laws. There are theories and frameworks. We are about out of time, but I'll rush through that. So there are three theories I'll look at quickly, but I'll spend more time on Octalysis. And in a manner of speaking, I've addressed some of the functions of Octalysis, or some of the recommendations of Octalysis, but I'll go over them quickly. So the two other prevalent theories of gamification is one is self-determination theory, the other is flow theory, and then we have Octalysis. I'll quickly go through them. Our time flies when you're having fun. So self-determination theory argues that if the following three psychological needs in humans are satisfied by an initiative, the players will stay. Whatever initiative that satisfies these three deep or fundamental psychological needs by humans will get people engaged till the end. People in the learning and development world have leveraged this a lot. And the three fundamental psychological needs are autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Autonomy is where players must not feel compelled to play, you know. So that is why the example of the Chinese social score is a bad example. Majority of the players within that environment did not choose to play that game. They want to live their lives. They want to be free. They want the ideals of democracy in their own lives too. They want to be free and all of that. But they often will check themselves out of compulsion and out of knowing the consequences, the hard consequences of not doing so. They will check themselves and behave in certain manners and all that. But you see, if however we allow the players to choose. So if you look at an example, and I don't work for Discovery, and I'm not going to get any affiliate rewards from talking about them, but it seemed to be the biggest implementer of gamification in South Africa with their Discovery Vitality for insurance and for health. You choose when you are signing up for medical insurance with Discovery. They don't force you, as far as I know. They don't bundle Vitality into it. They give you the option to take up Vitality. So that's a level of autonomy. So, and at any point in time, you can decide that I'm pulling back and I don't want this anymore. I don't want Vitality anymore because it's not meeting my needs, or I'm just paying for Vitality, but I don't have the time and the energy to play the actual game. Another important thing is competence. The actions to be taken in the game must require a balance of skill and competence. You know, in order for the challenge to stay challenging enough for the players to keep playing. So you'd find that again, back to Discovery. When you first joined Vitality, they set you a goal of being active for X number of hours a week, and that goal increases until you reach an upper limit. And when you reach an upper limit, you can motivate, if you want to ask Discovery to consider you as an athlete and move your upper limit further up. And the actions must also be related, must be relatable to the players. It must be such that it matches one way or the other their fantasies or their realities, and it also allows them to feel connected with the world outside there. It shouldn't be absolutely isolated. That's probably one of the places where gamification and actual games are dissonant, because you find that some games isolate the players from the rest of the world. Our gamified experiences shouldn't do that to our players. So flow, which is a second theory I'm going to quickly go over, refers to the concept where an activity is so engaging and immersive that the players, they lose the concept of time. They lose the fact that time is passing. It's engaging enough and all that. Again, there will be elements to this, and I feel that Octalysis actually addresses appropriately some of the elements here. I'm not looking at the charts, so I might be missing your comments and all that. So please forgive me. I'm trying to get over the meat of this conversation. So the Octalysis framework brings humaneness into gamification, and that's what I've been advocating from the beginning of. So you probably know where my bias lies. So that's what I've been advocating since the beginning of this session. So Octalysis is human-centric, and it lists out 8 core drives for human motivation. This was developed and gifted to the world by a gentleman named Yu Kai Chu. And I've displayed here all of the 8 core drivers. It's meaning, empowerment, social influence, unpredictability, avoidance, scarcity, ownership, and accomplishment. And I'm going to rush through each of these shortly. So your gamification experience, for it to really make sense, for it to really capture and captivate your audience, must have meaning. again, you find that there are elements of Octalysis that also exist in flow and self-determination theory. But Octalysis is a lot more encompassing. So you find that one key way to get started from is to craft an epic mission, a story that the players would like to be a part of. And that story needs to resonate with the players, realities or fantasies or both. Again, that ties back to relatedness on the self-determination. If you look at most of the games you have played and you keep playing, there's a story. If you played Super Mario, you need to save the princess. At the end of every world, there's a princess to be saved. Yeah, the princess runs away, or the monsters come back to take the princess away, or they convert the princess into monsters, and you have to go to the next world to save the princess and all that. But that's something to look forward to. And in between the start of the world and the end of the world, there are several subtle, smaller challenges that you have to navigate in order to go and face the big challenge. So there's a story, there's a meaning that the player identifies with. You know, again, back to our society. A story people can identify with is the national grid is under intense pressure, and we need to save it so that we don't all have load shedding. The fear of load shedding in South Africa is the beginning of wisdom. So if there's anything we can do to prevent load shedding, I'm sure, we will do it gladly. So if the story is crafted that way, of course, there are some of us that would also say, but we are not responsible for the challenges that has led to load shedding and all that. But let's pretend like we're in a perfect world just for the purpose of this conversation. If the story resonates with your reality or with your fantasy, there's a likelihood that you keep playing. So it's super important that when gamifying or when crafting gamification experiences in our user journeys, that we ensure that we craft an epic story that the users can relate to and may want to be part of. Your story must be empowering. The entire game must be empowering. It shouldn't disempower players. It shouldn't take away too much from the players. Besides their time and their attention, it shouldn't take too much away from the players. And the game shouldn't be about the game itself. It should be about the underlying action that you want the players to take. So you want your players to stay healthy. You want your players to stop smoking. You want your players to only switch on their pool pumps when they absolutely need it. You want your players to, what else? You want your players to stop a bad behavior. You want your players to think before they spend money. It shouldn't start and end with the game. The players must be able to relate, must be empowered to see what the decisions they are taking, actually how it translates into benefits or challenges in their real life. So it's a balance of intrinsic and extrinsic stimulations. And when I showed you some of the games we played earlier, one of them was Facebook, the other was LinkedIn. Majority of us would run to click on those links because of the social influence that Facebook has allowed us, or that LinkedIn has allowed us, or that Instagram has allowed us, or any of these other social media platforms. So it's super important that you recognize that people like social influence, they want social influence, and in designing a gamified experience or in gamifying an experience, it's important that you place some emphasis on the player's ability to display how they are feared within a group of similarly skilled people. That's where leaderboards come in. We spoke about leaderboards earlier. That's where leaderboards come in. And you need to be careful when crafting leaderboards. Your leaderboards shouldn't pitch people of mixed skills together. Otherwise, some people will perpetually be at the bottom of the leaderboards, and they might get disinterested. They might become disinterested. So it's important that in crafting your leaderboards, you craft them. You group people with similar skills, people with similar backgrounds together, so they can see. They can, or if it's within a corporate environment, you are gamifying maybe a learning product within the organization. It's important that you show people. The leaderboard shows how colleagues are faring against each other. So that way, if I realize that I'm the only one out of 50 people who haven't completed chapter 3 of the compulsory learning module for the new Poppy Act, Poppy Awareness e-learning on campus, I probably would hurry to go finish it, as opposed to not seeing that leaderboard. Another important thing is that we need to ensure that there is a measure of unpredictability in our gamified experiences. The players, you must keep the players asking what's next, what's going to happen. A popular example of successful gamification is the piano experience that was orchestrated by Volkswagen. Volkswagen wanted people to take the exercise, the stairs as opposed to the escalators. And what they did was to paint the staircase with they painted the staircase to look like the keyboard of a piano, and then they added some sounds. So each time you step on a key on a stair, it makes a sound. So people are interested to know what the next sound would be and all that. And what they observed was that about 60% or 65% of people who were using the escalators stopped using it and used the staircase instead. Now, that's is a good example of gamification, because it's helping people stay fit. It's helping people exercise, get up and move around. But what kept people going on that staircase, or what kept people coming back, is that every time they step on a key, they hear a different sound. And they are looking forward to what the sound will be the next time they come to use the stairs. Another example is that of the Super Mario game I gave earlier, which is a pure game. Players are not absolutely, except they've played the game many times, multiple times, they don't know what the next challenge is. And that's one of the reasons they keep coming back. You need to put an element of surprise in your user journeys, in your gamified user journeys, in order for you to stay attractive for customers. And when it begins to get boring, these are the things that you go back and tweak. You move the surprises further down the journey or further up the journey, if it's a journey that you need people to take again and again and again and again. And you find that players will keep coming back. You need to build in things that customers or players would like to avoid. So an example is to keep people coming back. You let them know that if they don't come back in X amount of time, they're going to lose the progress they've made, and you'll have to start all over again. So that's a good thing to do. But again, it's also easy to fall on the dark side with this kind of experience, because there's a challenge if you don't do this well, or you do it for selfish reasons. There's a challenge that people, in trying to avoid losing their points, will come back and attempt to trick the game, or come back and attempt to just play the game for the sake of playing the game and not for the attainment of the underlying purpose or reasons for the game. There's a need for you to create some measure of scarcity. The goods of the games, the points you allocate to people, the badges, there should be a measure of rarity attached to them. If those goods are easy to come by, players will lose the sense of the challenge and exit too early. So if it's too easy to score points, you know, if I can in my discovery drive, my discovery vitality drive package, every week, I need to drive 100 kilometers continuously without any incident. So that is one reason why for the first 3 days of the week, I don't drive like a maniac. And guess what? I get so used to not driving like a maniac the first 3 days of the week that I forget which day of the week it was. And for the rest of the week, I drive decently, you know. But if it was if it was easier, if it was just 5 kilometers I needed to drive, without any incident and all that, and I achieved that in the first hour of driving, in the first hour of the week, I probably won't bother. I would attempt to game the system. I would just remind myself to drive well in the first hour of the week, get the points, and move on. Players should be able to own the output of their work in the game. So the points and badges end in the game. If it's possible for us to keep it, if it's possible to allow the players to keep them perpetually, then we should do so. Again, this goes back to speak with social status. I would play a game that I can show my children in 5 years' time, when they are old enough to understand that I was a star in that game. I'll prefer that to a game that doesn't allow me to do that. And I'm sure that's the same with majority of us in the room today. So it's important, if it's possible for the players to own their goods, then fantastic, let them do it. If it's possible to exchange those goods, those virtual goods for real life goods, again, Discovery comes to mind. And Momentum, I've forgotten what Momentum calls their own incentivized fitness program. If with the points you earn there, you can convert them into real life goods like coffee, croissants, and other things. So that is also motivation enough to want to continue. So I remember the colleague of mine saying to me that he drinks crap coffee all week long, but he looks forward to that one cup of Seattle coffee, which he earns from participating, from driving well on Discovery Vitality. So that's a good use case, right? So we need to ensure that there is such element, but within the ambit of the law. If the law does not allow you to convert virtual goods into physical goods, or require that you take it a step further and potentially charge taxes and all that on those goods, then do those, or don't allow that conversion at all. But give a measure of permanence, a measure of ownership to the players. Above all else, there must be a way to show social status. There must be a way to show accomplishment. You know, it goes back to also owning, being able to, so some of these elements all intertwine, but it goes back to speak to that. So you need to build a means for players to feel accomplished and to show and brag about their accomplishments. So that's super important. The players must be able to show their peers, their colleagues, how well they have done. Again, back to the example I've been citing, there are about 9 of my friends, so about 10 of us in that group, 9 of my friends who we are connected on Discovery Vitality app. And what happens is that at the end of the day, every day before we go to bed, we check to see who is ahead and what they have done and all that. And sometimes I've done 10,000 steps for the day and I've earned some of the points, but I know I can earn a lot more points if I get to 20,000 steps. And I'm feeling so tired and I don't feel like going to the gym, but I don't want Bryden to be ahead of me. Or I realize that for the rest of the week, I'm going to be super busy and I'm going to be working late. And there's a chance I'm not going to hit 10,000 steps maybe on Wednesday. That's the reason I'll hit the gym. True story. I'll hit the gym. And I will spend a lot of time on the treadmill and ensure that I'm swinging my arms well so that it counts for steps and all that. So I score 2 points. I score 20,000 steps that day. And I also score fitness points for going to the gym and all that. And that puts me ahead. And that allowed, so it's if there was no sense of accomplishment, there's no need for me to demonstrate that I've accomplished something and all that. If it was just me and all that, I would just assume to myself that that's going to be a bad week and I will live with it. I won't take that extra step of trying to beat the problem or the challenge that week is going to present. So I hope I have done more work convincing you that gamification is possible. Gamification has got 2 sides, a good side and a bad side. We are responsible for, as BAs, to help businesses do good with gamification, and we should stay within the bounds of the law and ethics and morals. I also like to emphasize the fact that gamification don't always work. And there are 3 key areas or key examples or key scenarios where gamification won't work. If you apply poor game design choices, if your emphasis is too much on the carrot and stick, there's a chance that your players are not dumb, they're going to see through it. And at some point, they're going to abandon the game or not play it at all. So it's important that we strive in designing our gamified experiences, we strive to mix it finely, to mix extrinsic and intrinsic motivations or motivators for our players so they can keep playing. You know, and if you attempt to gamify a bad product, there's a chance that people will see through it. Sorry, I went too fast there. There's a chance that people will see through the experience and not participate. And to be honest with you, gamifying an experience will not magically convert that bad product into an excellent one. Gamification is not a magic one that does that. Gamification would rather work well with an already well-designed product or service to work better. So the ultimate for people who participate in most games, again, back to my discovery example, the ultimate need for majority of the people that do that is they don't want their medical aid, or okay, let's go to the insured drive one. They don't want their insurance premiums to go up the following year. They don't want to, so that is one of motivation, it's economic. But you see, the smaller challenges of driving 100 kilometers every week without incidents, incentivizing them and all those, are those small challenges that keeps people going throughout the year, that keeps reminding them of what their longer term goals are, you know. And without those smaller challenges and all that, and without that reward at the end of the year, people will continue to drive like maniacs and get into accidents. And on the one hand, Discovery will be paying out claims in leaps and bounds. But now Discovery has created a win-win scenario where they've created a good product, which is their insured product. It's awesome. We all need to, insurance for most of us is a grudge purchase, but they've created a well-balanced insurance product. And then they've decided that, okay, this is good for everybody to have insurance. But how do we then incentivize that, ensure that people that should get insurance don't avoid getting insurance? And they built Insured Drive around it. Now, Insured Drive has not just helped people who don't want insurance to get insurance and feel good about it, but it's also made our roads safer. So it's win-win for everybody. That's an excellent approach to gamification. The government wins, or society wins. The individuals, me and you, win. And then the insurance or the business owner or the service provider also wins. everybody wins. In short, the discovery pays less claims out. You and I have less reasons to claim, but we get part of our premiums back in incentives, petrol rewards, and all of that. And we are all happy. And it's the reason, and that also converted me into an ambassador. I spoke to a number of my colleagues about Discovery Insurance. Start working for Discovery Insurance for these reasons. Now, when you are trying to trick people as well into taking unnecessary actions or into taking the actions you want them to take, that's dark pattern. And there's a whole lot of literature around that. That is an example of, and people are smart, people are avoiding dark patterns now. So that's a very terrible attempt at gamification, and it should be avoided at all costs. So Octalysis helps practitioners target finally the extrinsic and intrinsic motivators to nudge people into action. And that's why it's the biggest model I spent, or it's the model this morning that got most of my attention and my time. And I'm going to leave you with these last words before we start the conversation, if there's still room for that. You need to remember that you need to always play by the rules. There are legal rules, there are ethical rules, there are moral rules that we need to play by. We shouldn't do gamification just for the sake of gamification. We should do it because we want to create win-win environments and scenarios for ourselves or our businesses and our target audience and for society at large. At this point, I'm going to rest. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much, Olu. That was great. And just judging by the comments and the questions we've had in the chat, it seems like people are really engaged and really enjoyed that. So thank you so much. I think it's clear that gamification is part of our everyday life in so many facets. You've mentioned so many today. I think we're all going to be heightened. Our awareness to it will be heightened, especially the dark side. I think the dark side is something to be aware of, but also I think the positives that can come out of gamification, how we can really make our products sing and make the applications that we're working on, processes, whatever it may be, but just in our day-to-day, how we can leverage gamification for good, but being aware of the bad. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, everyone, to have the Q&A session, but what I'd really encourage you to do is to hop onto some of the groups on our portal, engage with Olu there. I know Olu's been quite active on the site. I've seen him on the leaderboard as well. So there's certainly gamification on the portal as well. I've seen Olu sitting at the top. But I encourage you to engage in a networking session. I know Olu's often on there as well. Encourage you to have those sessions outside of this particular Zoom link. But with that, again, I want to thank Olu. Thank you for your time. Thank you everyone for attending. And just a reminder that the next sessions, both for the listen, learn, and engage, start at 11 o'clock. So have a look and see what your next choices are. But we'll see you in the next session. Thank you so much.
Just before we go, Bryden, please, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm passionate about this. There's a very tiny risk that I'm going to publish 1 or 2 peer-reviewed papers in the coming year on this subject. So I'm passionate about it. So if you have questions about that, you want to engage or you want to collaborate, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, on WhatsApp, if you're on any of the volunteer groups or on the conference portal, and let's chat. Let's take this further. I'm sorry I took so much time and I couldn't answer the questions, but I'll take a screenshot of the questions and attempt to respond to them. I reach out to the individuals who ask the questions and respond to them. Thank you very much, guys, and enjoy the rest of your stay at the conference.